Hey guys, Dwelling Elves here, and welcome to part 3 of my review of the Dark Elf Army book. So in this video we're going to be taking a look at the special choices, and what to take, and how to use, and what not to take, and how to use effectively what you do take, and how some of the choices synergize or complement each other. So there are tons of choices in this brand new book. We've got Blackguard, Executioner, Cold One Knights, Cold One Chariots, Repeater Bolt Throwers, Shades, Harpies, the Scourge Runner Chariot, and the War Hydra. So I expect there's a lot of good things in here, so I expect that pretty much all armies are going to be 50% special. I think you should really be maximizing your special. These should form the bread and butter of your army. These are going to be your combat units that are going to win or lose you games. So the first unit that we're going to be looking at are Blackguard. So they've got the elite infantry for elf stats, in addition to an extra attack and the special rules Eternal Hatred, which means they reroll to hit all the time, so they're not relying on their Always Strike First to reroll. So in every round of combat they're getting Hatred, which is very, very good and is particularly useful against other things with Always Strikes First. Because if it's Always Strike First versus Always Strikes First, you strike at the same time, but neither you get rerolls. Blackguard will still get those rerolls. They're immune to Psych, which has its benefits and drawbacks. It means they can't flee, but this is going to be one of your main combat blocks. I don't think you want to flee with it anyway. So they don't have to worry about fear or terror. And they are also stubborn. On leadership 9, which can easily be improved to 10, with a reroll, these guys are not going to be going anywhere. It's a 1 in 144 chance if they're leadership 10 with a reroll. So these guys will be fighting to the last man on most occasions. Now, their perfect matchup is other infantry. They're infantry killers with 2 strength 4 attacks that are always rerolling the hit and rerolling the wound on ones. They're going to kill other infantry, especially considering that they are initiative 6 and striking first. Matchups to avoid are obviously Monstrous Cav and other Cav. Strength 4 is not going to punch through 2+ armor saves or 1+ armor saves that you see on Mournfangs or other Empire Knights or even Bretonnia Knights with a 2-up. They're going to have issues dealing with those. They're also very vulnerable to shooting, so they've got a 5-up armor and toughness 3, so like all your other elves, they're vulnerable to shooting. But again, this is why I recommend using crossbows as well as Dark Riders in synergy with a Blackguard list. So your shooting should take out his shooting, and any war machines can be dealt with by your Dark Riders, so that'll help your Blackguard stay alive, which is again going back to my other video, why I recommend crossbows and Dark Riders above all other core choices. Now, they are also the ideal cauldron pushers. I would hoard these guys up and put the Cauldron of Blood in that unit, so you need at least, I would say, 28+. So you're going to be 10 wide and have a ridiculous amount of attacks coming from the front rank. If you give your Cauldron Witch Brew, or if you use the Bound spell, you're going to have 3 attacks apiece that are going to be mostly hitting on 3s with rerolls every round, and then also Strength 4 with all rerolls. I mean, you should be hitting about 90% of your attacks, and then you should be wounding. Really, it depends on what you're fighting, but maybe 75% of the time as well. You're absolutely going to murder things with this combination. Now, the 2 banners that I would take in this unit, I would give the Swiftness banner to the BSB, so that the unit is movement 6, which will help them get into combat that much faster. And I'll give the Razor Standard to the unit. Now, the reason I give the Razor Standard to the unit and not the BSB is the BSB is pretty fragile and might die. Once you get into combat, you don't need the Swiftness banner anymore, but you still need the Razor Standard. So it guarantees that your Razor Standard will be around as long as possible. If your unit is sticking, the Razor Standard is there. So Strength 4 armor piercing goes a long way to cutting through armor, especially if you get a Power of Darkness or 2 off. Then you're going to be looking at Strength 5 armor piercing, and then you're in a better situation as far as one of the worst matchups is concerned with monstrous cav as well as regular cav. So I really recommend Blackguard. I think they are top infantry. They murder everything, but again, they are vulnerable to shooting, but like we talked about earlier, there are ways around that. Now, I think if you take Blackguard, you must take a unit of Executioners, and that's because Executioners do what Blackguard don't do. So Executioners have great weapons, only one attack apiece, but they also have Killing Blow, which means these guys are going to murder monstrous cav, as well as regular cav, as well as other monsters. Now, with Murderous Prowess, with them having reroll ones to hit, without, all the time, without you, worrying about what the Cauldron buffs them or not, that means they're going to be killing things very, very frequently. With Strength 6, you're normally wounding everything on 2+, and if you don't wound, you get to re-roll that on 2+. So that is a great combination, and Executioners really come out ahead with getting the new Always Strike, or getting Always Strikes first, which means they don't get rerolls to hit, but they're going to be striking at initiative. Now, Strength 6 striking at initiative, pretty solid, especially considering that you're also going to be rerolling to wound. These guys are going to absolutely murder things. Now, these are your perfect horde candidates, so I put them in units 30+, 10 wide, so that you get maximum amount of attacks. They don't lose any. The back ranks don't lose any attacks when they're in horde because they only have one attack apiece. Now, they have the same vulnerabilities as Blackguard. They're toughness 3 with a 5-up armor. But again, if you use your core section properly to support these guys, you're going to be taking lots of crossbows and fast cav to deal with war machines and other shooting to make sure your guys stay alive. Again, the matchups you want with these guys are the opposite matchups with the Blackguards. So you want to attack monsters, monstrous cav, and regular cav. These are your best matchups. If you don't end up taking a Cauldron of Blood, one thing I would recommend is taking the Master BSB that I talked about on foot in my previous video with the Crown Command. This means that your horde of 30+ guys with a character with a 1-up armor save in there will be stubborn. Not that I expect these guys to lose a lot, but there could be bad matchups, or someone could magic debuff you, or bad things happen sometimes. With the Crown of Command in this unit, they're not going anywhere, and they will outgrind, hopefully, and outkill whatever runs into them. So, if you're taking Blackguard, I also recommend Executioners. These are going to be your bread and butter infantry. If you don't want to take an infantry-based list, then I recommend Cold One Knights, which are the next special choice we'll be talking about. Cold Ones get a boost with the extra attack, which means that the front rank getting 2 attacks at Strength 4 is pretty solid, and it also means that you're going to grind infantry down a lot faster. Unlike a lot of other cavalry, which have Strength 3 horses, Cold Ones mounts can actually outkill the riders now, especially after the charge. So what Cold One Knights give you that the rest of the infantry in this army don't is speed and durability. So you've got movement 7 as opposed to movement 5 from before, but you've got the 2-up armor save. Now the 2-up armor save is big in an army of toughness 3. So these guys are they're hammers, but could potentially be anvils as well, depending on how you use them. Now I recommend them in either one of 2 forms. Units of 5 or 6 with a musician, and these are just monster hunters. So they'll have 5 or 6 attacks, strength 6, rerolling to hit, and then another bunch of cold one attacks. With movement 7, they're maybe a little bit faster than most other monsters. So a small unit like this is more of a versatile, flexible unit that can also go into infantry and hopefully outgrind them with the extra attacks. I like these. If you flank charge a Hydra or Chimera with these guys, you won't get Thunder Stomped, and you'll get a bunch of attacks in. So I like them in that role, in a small support role. The other way you can take them is in units of 9 or 11, and in this case I would put your BSB and full command in there. I really like the Swiftness banner. Movement 8 is always better than Movement 7 on these guys, and a unit like this works well in a monster mash list. So if you're going to be running this unit, you probably be running a lot of Hydras and rare monsters. You probably don't want to be running the infantry list, because then you've got something that's really fast, can hit hard, and support the rest of your list pretty quickly. And I would also recommend that you take a Lore of Beasts mage, either a level 4 or a level 2, in this type of list. Because Wissen's Wild Form on a cav unit is very easy to cast and synergize as well, and then getting Savage Beast of Horus up on your BSB makes them even that much killier. So these are the two builds that I would run, and I really recommend Cold One Knight still. Now we move on to the War Hydra. So the War Hydra's changed a little bit, so he's got a couple of special rules. It's now just a pure monster. It lost its handlers, so you don't get those extra attacks anymore. So if you end up buying the new kit, or if you have the old kit, I probably wouldn't even put those two guys on the base, but again, that's a modeling thing, we're talking really about rules here. So you get 2 extra guys in the kit. So the new rules it gets, it's lost regen, but it did gain if one head is severed, ... which means that the War Hydra's base attacks are 3, plus the number of wounds it has remaining. So it's 5 wounds, so it's going to have somewhere between 4 and 8 attacks, which is pretty nice. Now, it's really, really good considering the synergy it has with it takes, and another takes its place. So instead of regen, for every wound you take, at the start of your turn, roll a number of dice for all the wounds you've taken. On a 4+, you regain that wound. So it's like regen, but different. I think it's very fluffy for the Hydra because, you know, fluff speaking, if you cut off its head, another one will take its place. So it will regain wounds. This means that it is more vulnerable to getting one-shotted by artillery, so a cannonball can take it out, and it doesn't have the regen save against it. However, if it takes 1 or 2 wounds, it can easily regain those wounds. Which means that you want to get these guys into combat as quickly as possible, so that you can avoid getting one-shotted by war machines. And once they're in combat, you're probably going to take a wound or 2 every round, maybe even 3 wounds. But you get these. You can easily regrow these wounds in future combats, which means these guys are going to be sticking around a long time. They really need to be one-shotted, and if your opponent can't one-shot these, they're pretty much nigh unkillable. Now, you have 2 upgrades. I think one is decent, and the other is not. Fiery Breath is 20 points, and you get a Strength 4 breath weapon. I think this is an auto-include. You know, an extra 2d6 strength 4 hits in close combat is nice, or if you can get that flame template down on somebody else. It's also useful while moving, it's pretty useful. It's also got a second shooting attack, which is Spitfire, which is the same points cost, and this has a range of 8. The strength is equal to the number of heads that are remaining, so the number of wounds that are remaining, so it's somewhere between strength 1 and 5. There's a flaming attacks and multiple shots rule, which again, multiple shots is equal to the number of wounds remaining, so you can get 5 shots at strength 5. Which, the thing is, this is a combat monster. I wouldn't use this, and you can't shoot in the close combat, so I wouldn't recommend this. I would stick with Fiery Breath. So again, with these guys, run them into CC as quickly as possible. They're going to outgrind infantry. They will do tons of attacks as long as they have remaining wounds left, even with a few wounds. If they're down to 1 wound, they can easily, if you get lucky, they can just regenerate everything and just boom, haha, you did 4 wounds, no, I drove all those back and I'm sticking around. This is, I like the new rules, and I think the Hydra is a pretty effective close combat monster. Obviously, don't charge anything with great weapons. You're going to be fighting strength 3 and 4 infantry with these guys. Or potentially other monsters as well, it really depends. They've got enough attacks to deal with other monsters. I mean, a lot of the new Lizardman monsters or the high elf monsters only have 3 or 4 attacks. So with 8 attacks, you will outfight those guys. So I think all in all, the Hydra is pretty solid. I think if you're going to run a monster mash, run it with Cold One Knights to support with the BSB, and then run 3 Hydras. I think people are going to have a difficult time killing 3 Hydras outright. And you really got to focus fire on 1, which means the other 2 should stay in close combat, or should get to close combat. So I think the Hydra is a solid choice in special. Then we come to Shades. Now Shades are another role player, but by getting always strikes first, Shades with great weapons become viable again. You don't get rerolls to hit, but you're striking at initiative 5 with great weapons, which is awesome. And normally you're charging these guys into War Machine crews, so 5 or 6 attacks should kill the War Machine crew before they do any damage to you. So I would run units of 5 or 6 with great weapons. Again, I think these guys are great scouts. They have the option of killing things in close combat or shooting the crap out of anything. 5 or 6 will get 10 or 12 shots with repeater crossbows, and you can put them in the right position. I recommend a unit of these guys, especially in infantry-based lists where you really want to take out war machines, or even in monster-based lists where you want to take out war machines. They're just great scouts and very versatile. Now, Harpies, I think these guys are the perfect flying redirectors. They don't benefit from hatred or murderous prowess, so they're not going to be killing a lot, but that's not really the point of these guys. You want to fly these guys in front of a unit you don't want to fight, or a unit that's frenzied, and make them overrun in a favorable manner. That's the biggest thing you can do with these guys. They're also very good cauldron supporters, so what they can do is you keep them behind your cauldron might get frenzy baited. So if you know you're going to charge something, you charge into one of the redirectors and you know you're going to have a bad overrun, you fly your Harpies from behind your cauldron in front of your cauldron so that when it overruns, it runs directly into your Harpies and you end up not overrunning and not exposing your flank, and you keep your orientation. So this can save you games, and this is how I would recommend you use these guys. I would take 1 or 2 units of 5. You can even take 3, but I think 1 or 2 is enough. An alternative way of running these guys is as War Machine Hunters, but I think a lot of the rest of the army does that well already. You've got Shades, as well as Dark Riders and Core, as well as repeater crossbows could get lucky, but I mean, yeah. So they could act as War Machine Hunters, but they're kind of third in line in that role. So I recommend 1 or 2 units per list, especially 2 if you're running the Cauldron, or even a horde of Frenzied Witch Elves. It can save you when you overrun in an unfavorable way. Repeater Bolt Throwers got cheaper, so now they're down to 70 points. They are vulnerable because they only have 2 wounds, but you know, we don't have cannons in this list, so you need something to deal with the flying monsters and monstrous cav. You can take out a Mournfang or a Demigriff per turn with one of these guys. I think I would recommend 2 in each list, unless, especially more in infantry lists, maybe less in the Monster Mash list, because that's going to be super aggressive and you're going to get everything in close combat very quickly, and you're probably not worried about other people's monsters as much. But definitely an infantry list, I would run 2. If you want to play really defensive lists, I would run 4, with a backed up with an army of repeater crossbows. You're going to be turning everything into pin cushions, and you will murder things before they get to you, which is always nice. So yes, I think these guys, you know, they serve their purpose and they have a specific role. Now, Cold One Chariots, they're pretty durable and they are killy because the Cold Ones get 2 extra attacks. They can work well in support of the Monster Mash list, so what you've got is over target saturation if you have a bunch of Chariots and a bunch of Hydras. That's a lot of targets that cannons or artillery won't be able to deal with. But I think there are better choices. I think I would take Hydras before them, because Hydras are just that much better and they fill a very similar role as high impact monsters. And then Cold One Knights are more durable, and can also facilitate characters better, so you can put your BSB in one of those units. So in larger lists where you've already filled up your Hydras and your Cold One choices, I would maybe consider taking these, but they come in 3rd place behind the Cold One Knights and the regular Hydras. Then we have the new choice, which is the Scourge Runner Chariot. It is faster than a Cold One Chariot, so it's got movement 9, but it is less durable. It's got a worse armor save, and I'm not a big fan of Scourge Runner Chariot. It's a jack of all trades, so it's pretty expensive as well at 150 points. So what you get is a mobile artillery piece. So you get the Strength 7 Harpoon Gun, which is a bolt thrower that's Strength 7, and it's got the Barded Bolt, which again pulls the target to you by d6 inches. If you roll more than a 3, the monster takes another wound. So it's a better bolt thrower, but it's twice as many points as 2 regular bolt throwers. So I think 2 regular bolt throwers are probably better. Now you get a mobile unit that's also a chariot, but I think, you know, the issue with this unit is it's jack of all trades, master of none. So if you want shooting, you're better off with 2 regular bolt throwers. If you're going to use it as a chariot, And as a fighting unit, you're better off as Cold Run Chariots because if you charge it into something, then you can't use the Strength 7 Bolter, which you paid a bunch of points for. So I'm not a fan of it because it doesn't do anything particularly well. If you want Chariots, I would recommend Cold Run Chariots, and if you want a Bolt Thrower, just take 2 regular Bolt Throwers. So in summary, I think if you were going to play an infantry list, then Blackguard and Executioners in tandem are going to form the core of your list. You build it around these guys with Blackguard in the Cauldron and Executioners next to the Cauldron. They really benefit from both benefit from Always Strikes First as well as Murder's Prowess, and yeah, it's hard to top those two. And then if you're going to play a Monster Mash list, I recommend a unit Cold Run Knights with your BSB, as then max out your Hydras, 3 Hydras. So I think those two work in tandem well together, with the Knights being able to keep up with your Hydras. Harpies are great niche units. Again, you can use them to redirect other units, or you can make sure that you don't do a really shitty overrun when your Cauldron gets frenzy baited, so that can save you there. I'm not really a fan of either Chariots. I do think Shades are useful as well. So hope you guys learned something and enjoyed the video, and let me know if you disagree or agree with some of the things I've said. Alright, bye.